Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I will try to bring my understanding of what happened yesterday and today with few questions that we treated together. Firstly, recently I heard an imam saying that we claim that Islam is the truth, but at the same time, as long as it doesn't bring improvements and success in our personal life or even in society, there's something wrong. So there's nothing wrong with Islam, of course, but with the way we live Islam. So I just want to bring three questions here in order to make us reflect and to trigger a debate, I hope. The first question is about the reopening of the debate of ijtihad. That's the theological part, sorry. Then I want to speak about scholarship. And finally, about Maqasid Sharia with a practical issue, to be more concrete. So, firstly, with the reopening of the debate of ijtihad, I was a bit surprised that we didn't go through the deep the deep understanding of the text and what we talk when we talk about the text, because our brother Shawqi yesterday, he said that there is no contradiction in the text. Which text are we talking about when we say that? Is it the Quran or a hadith or even the development of Islamic sciences, treatises of fiqh? So that's a question I opened because I found it very interesting and important and crucial at that time. Firstly, because as a Muslim, I think we all believe in the Quran as a revelation, so there's no problem at that time, even if Professor Tariq Ramadan, this morning, he talked about the viewpoints of Abu Zaid or Surush or other scholars who try to take another approach of this classical or traditional text, which we can call a critical progressist approach, which cause problem because they study the Quran with a new regard of that, and I think that's problematic, but we cannot talk about that now. What I wanted to address today is the link we have with a hadith and Islamic jurisprudence, fiqh, which was developed later on. Because today we can say there is no contradiction in the text and everything is fine. That's what we learned these last years. But at the same time, today many people come to us, Muslims or non-Muslims, and they show us texts showing us contradiction, and they say, you say you believe in the Bukhari and Muslim and the Sahih Hadith, but here there is that, and that we see that, and that's an apparent contradiction. How you respond to that? And when we talk about that, some scholars called reformists or whatever, they propose their version that other people would criticize. They say these people are not real scholars or whatever, but at the same time, I think it's very important, if we don't agree with that, to bring another response. Because we cannot just open a question and say, no, we don't want to enter that problem. I think it's very dangerous. Because of that approach, I realize many people in Belgium or France, mostly in Belgium, in my observation, they left Islam. Because people came to them, they show them texts, say Islam say that. Oh, how we can react to that? And nobody would explain the reason or the quality of this text, and I think that's a debate I would like people, or in this occasion or other occasions, to open this very important debate, because I know the approach was about telling there's no problem and to hide that behind and just to talk between themselves, but I think we reached a crucial point where these problems need to be addressed and answered. That was my first point, and the other will be quicker because I don't know about the time. And then arrive under a question of scholarship, and we speak mostly about the scholars without naming them. So I would like just to ask the question, who are the scholars today and what are their responses to our current problems? Because I found out there is no real consensus about who is a scholar in the Islamic community, because it depends from which tendency or approach the Muslim is. He would quote different names and different scholars. So for many people, it began very difficult to know who to listen. But personally, I would say you can listen to everybody as long as you think. But so for me to say the scholars say is not enough, and it doesn't work anymore because there is a diversity inside the theological viewpoints. And then, to be more concrete, it has been said this morning that the fiqh has been functional till today. So why do we need to establish a new discipline? I think there are problems which weren't taken in consideration for a long time. For instance, I want to talk about the problem of slavery. Of course, everybody is against slavery, but in many traditional schools of Islam, texts about slavery and how to treat the slaves are still used. And it's difficult to hear or to find out a reply to deal with that problem and to trigger to a conclusion that slavery is non-Islamic. So that's the kind of questions I would like also to be opened, I think. Finally, we said that it's important to bring together the scholars and the practitioners in all these fields. I just have something coming in my mind. I think if somebody wants to be a real Islamic scholar, he has to understand the context. Because if we come back to Abu Hanifa or Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik or Imam Hanbal, all these people, they gave their knowledge according to the context. So, of course, they have to get an understanding of society. And that doesn't prevent them to consult people who are scholars in specific fields, such as medicine or other fields. But at the same time, it's really needed to understand the society in which they are to provide fatwa or other Islamic theories. And finally, as I was a social worker and I preparing a PhD on social action with Islam, I'm very interested personally about the issue of zakat. And I think it's an interesting topic when we talk about Maqasid Sharia, because it's very interesting to go back to that third pillar of Islam to see how we can apply it, because everybody is agreed that it's a fard duty, but it's not organized yet, and there are a lot of new questions arriving. One first question, for instance, is to whom should we give our zakat? Another question can be what should we do with our zakat? Assistance or development? It means we can, for instance, think about the proper use of zakat to lead to a development of society in a wiser and wider way that we do actually. So that's just some questions I wanted to append with you, and I hope we can get to a debate and to new ideas about that. Thank you. Thank you, because it's important for me just to specify what it says. Firstly, I spoke about Belgium and France because I don't want to quote examples I don't know. So I knew many people living Islam in those specific countries, but it can be everywhere. Secondly, I think Google, internet is not the real problem. The real problem is a change of time. We live in a different time than 15 years ago even. I was taught by in mosques or by imam or by Muslims to believe that and that and that as a truth, and nobody was here to show different talks, so we just accepted what it was giving to us. But no, the debate is so open that we cannot just close the eyes, because people will always come with argumentations, and I think it's a duty to reopen debates. Even many people, they don't like the debates because in a way it can break down all the construction, all their ideology they have developed. So, but as we are searching for the truth, and it is not a matter of, it's inside the community, because we don't talk against Quran, or we believe in Quran, we believe in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we believe what he says, so we believe in Sunnah, but this doesn't mean necessarily to believe everything what has been made later on, even in the Hadith, because there are some scholars, Islamic scholars, who open the debate. Sometimes I listen to them, I find there are good arguments, but I'm not a follower of anyone, so I don't really care. I just listen to the arguments. Then you tell that to other Muslim scholars or imam, they say, no, 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 don't listen to him, it's wrong. Say, you have to bring back an argumentation. You cannot say, don't listen to them, it's wrong, if you don't reply with any arguments, and I think that's a big problem inside the committee nowadays. But besides, I agree with what you say, and sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to reply on to what you said, as well as add on to brother what you said as well. You know, we live in a day and age where we have access to the internet, and it is we have access to a lot of information. But I think where I become wary, and I'd be interested in what all of you guys are thinking as well, is that and I ask the same question to my students, because I'm a high school teacher, is that when we go and seek out knowledge, are we checking our sources? Because there are people trawling the internet who are trying to catch people and followers of their individual ideologies. So when I think about Sheikh Google, I think about radicalization. You know, why is it that within our communities we have these radical ideas coming up from? Of course, they do happen in certain mosques, undeniably. But at the same time, when we fail our youth by not connecting with them, who are they going to go and seek knowledge and their answers from? They will go to the internet. Now, I also believe that there are legitimate organizations that do online teaching as well, that come from legitimate scholarship and have been trained in legitimate organizations. But again, it comes down to, are we equipping our youth and people within our community with the tools to assess? And that's where I really appreciated, you know, the information about looking at our actions, seeing if there's meaning behind it, what's the intention, and what's the purpose. Because that, in a way, is an initiation towards us to really assess and analyze what we are being presented with. So yes, internet is there. I mean, there may be like rogue organizations out there that are putting those keywords on their websites to get attention towards their ideology. But again, as a community, we also need to question, you know, what is the legitimacy?
Yeah.
Which I felt that you kind of answered your own question, because yeah, there are contradictions, but we have to understand that we're not looking at information or knowledge in a decontextualized manner. We should contextualize,
Exactly.
you know, because the Quran is a revelation. We cannot read the Quran like a dictionary. It's a revelation. So why did the revelation happen? So we need to look at it not only from a historical context, but why was the revelation presented at that moment in time? What was the situation that was happening? And not only that, we should also look at it linguistically as well, because a lot of times, like for example, please excuse me if I'm not very, if I'm very vague in my historical knowledge, but the Quraysh used to question the Prophet ﷺ that you're not a poet. You're not a poet, so how come, as an illiterate person, how are you being able to analyze and really speak like this? So I get really nervous when I hear that there's a contradiction. We have to be very careful what we are naming as a contradiction. We should be really questioning ourselves. Do we understand what is being presented? Because sometimes we're contradicting our own knowledge because we lack the knowledge. Sorry, that's
Yeah. Just to be clear, I really agree with you. And when I talked about contradiction, I never meant the Quran.
No, of course.
I meant all the text. That just to be clear.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
Yeah,
no, but you,
just
just like how you said, we don't know what text the scholars that are here are talking about. You know, so just for clarity, maybe we should ask, okay, what is? And you asked that as well. It's like, what is the text? And when I hear text, I do think about the Quran and the Sunnah, and
exactly.
And then we should also look at, you know, what are the four schools of thought in terms of fiqh, and then look at the different schools of thought within aqidah, and and then the again, we have to look at the big picture, just as Dr. Ramadan said, right? Are we really looking at the big picture, or are we feeding into our own biases?
Yeah, so just to sum up, as the professors came back,
one of them is here. Oh no,
we
two
just
of them are here.
wanted some explanations to know what are the texts. Okay, sorry.
Oh yeah, they're all here.
Excuse me, sir. What are the texts that we take as granted as a revelation besides of the Quran? What is the status of a hadith? And if we recognize them as something truth, what do we do from scholars' viewpoints which attack that and which have many arguments which, according to me, weren't answered yet? So that's the question, to open a debate about that, because I think we are forced to go inside the thinking, because many people think about that now and they get confused. So that's it.
Okay, I think it's my turn now. It's really interesting that you say that, and I totally see your perspective. And a lot of times when we hear the news, oh, this incident happened in XYZ location, and then they go and interview the family, and they ask the family, well, what happened? Like, didn't you see the signs? Mm-hmm. Like, why is it that you didn't see this behavior or this atrocity come out of your child, even though they're a grown man or in their teens? And if not, most of the time, what a lot of the families say is that we never knew that they were like this. And then I'm a mother to be. I don't have children yet, but I am a mother to be. I question, why is it that families don't know what their children are doing? So if a family is in a social construction, as you said, socially, what are we doing? Yes. As a family, if we're not aware of what our children are doing, aren't we as a family unit being isolated in some way? And then even at a psychological level, isolation is not something that we as human beings that's not our biological fitra. Like we were talking about biological fitra this morning, right? It's not our biological fitra to be people who are isolated and alone. And so with the lack of community, with the lack of family, we lose a sense of belonging. Because religion is about retying our relationships, not only with Allah, but with our community. And if we don't have a sense of community and we keep blaming each other and we keep fighting with each other, then of course we're going to push people away to isolation and unfortunately in some cases to radicalization. No, I absolutely agree because, sorry, Yahya, I feel like I monopolized the mic here. I totally agree, and I think there's so many factors that we can look into it. Again, it's the cultural divide, and then I do believe Dr. Ramadan mentioned that, the culture of consumerism. Alhamdulillah, I'm really happy that I live in a country called Switzerland, and one of the things that I really appreciate about the Swiss people is that, Sunday everything's closed. It kind of forces you to mingle and really bond with your family. And in the beginning, when I moved from Canada to Switzerland, I'm like, oh my God, if everything shut down for a day, people go nuts. Like, it's like as if a war is breaking out and everybody's in the grocery stores and the shelves are empty, because the next day, oh my goodness, everything's shut down. But that's not necessarily the case in Switzerland. You see families that go out, they hike in nature, they bond, and that's a culture that they have, and it has been like that for a very long time. And even with the concept of coming home for lunch, they have that. I know that it's really difficult for mothers to have full-time jobs, because in a recent talk actually with the World Economic Forum, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf was actually on the panel amongst other women, and the big question was, do we have it all? And I think it was the Swiss labor relations lady. She said that 15% of women after having children in Switzerland go back to work, and they were like, oh, this is not good. We have to find ways, and absolutely, because there are single moms out there that need to work, and childcare is very, very very expensive. But something that I really appreciated that Sheikh Hamza said at the very end, he's like, yes, that's true, you know, that you know, when you go out, like, unfortunately women don't have that opportunity to work because of the cost of living and everything. They end up staying home and children have to come home for lunch and whatnot. But look at the benefit, you know, as a society, in the Swiss society, crime rates are extremely low, you know, and in that sense, you know, you see what the society in North America, children are yearning for attention. And I'm sure it's the same in Switzerland, but it's interesting to see that, you know, what we see as the natural fitra, you know, like of human beings to come together, to care and to show mercy towards our children, is slowly being erased. Just like how Dr. Ramadan was saying, you know, truth is being removed, gender is being removed, and what was the third part? I'm still trying to form. Sorry? God is being removed, right? Because we want to secularize everything. You know, so I absolutely agree. You know, I think that you know, it's a societal issue, and there's so many factors that contribute towards it. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, just to add a point about terrorism and the causes. As I was a social worker in prisons for years, I met a lot of people who had terrorist aspiration, if I can say, and in all the cases I saw, it was nothing about religion. So for me, it's a social problem. It's a consequence of exclusion, poverty, or non-integration, and other social problems, but it's not linked directly to religion. But when the religion side appear, is that these groups use religion to justify, to explain what they do, and that justification must be fought in the ground of religious theological argumentation. But the causes are behind, because normally that's the consequence of different problems and different type of psychological personalities and social circumstances which made the person wanted to join some groups and then to act as a terrorist. But the religion come at the last stage to justify what they do and to give a good picture, a meaning behind their action, to give sense to what they do. So that's just what I wanted to add.